I didn't finish this, but let's continue. I've started to, you know, philosophize in my dreams, and I had this, you know, I was discussing stuff in my head with people, certain YouTubers or something like that, and and or philosophers or whatever it was, but and I was discussing art and stuff. Like, I agree all of this stuff, I agree with others, and then what's left, you know, and that's, you know, I wanted to discuss art. But the thing is, we're going to get to art, the importance of art. I will make a importance of art video within, actually, because I think art is super important for general, you know, well-being. So, but I also wanted to, you know, explain my 4 foundations. I always talk about 4 foundations in life. There are only 4 foundations you need in life. You need nothing else, actually. You only need to develop these and you will have everything, you know. Within those, you know, 4 areas of life, you'll just excel in those, you know. Health, wealth, relations, spirituality, you know. 1, 2, 3, 4 essential areas in life. There are 4 essential areas in life. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, but all you need is, you know, these 4 foundations, because it's not the same thing as the 4 areas in life. The 4 areas in life is just, you know, health, wealth, relations, spirituality. You can, you know, I boil it down to all of that. You know, you have deeper experience, you have regular everyday experience, you have your work, business stuff, you have relationships with other people. That is basically life, all right? And obviously we have core behind of all of this. Now this shouldn't be in core. I mean, this is its own thing. Don't think that this is, you know, of course it's core, but, you know, it's a different expression about, you know, it's an observance of reality, you know, objectively, basically. But the core is behind all of the foundations. The foundations are like this. Now I'm basically giving away everything here. This will be in a course, but the course will go into details that I'm not going into here. All right, so you won't get everything here, obviously, because if I give everything away, there is nothing else to do in the course. So, well, it doesn't matter, but still. So we got here, you know, first foundation, all right? So I call all these different names. The first foundation, usually I used to call this core method, but core method is, I don't know, it's confusing because it's easier to talk about your core, your health, yourself here, you here, instead, you know, because, you know, core is core and foundation is foundation. You build your core on foundations. And, you know, foundation works very well. Scaling back. So I call first foundation scaling back. The reason for this is, you know, minimalism, getting rid of nonsense you don't need. And it doesn't matter what we're talking about here. When it comes to diet, you do that with diet. You do it with exercise in some sense. Well, actually, we add exercise. Most people don't exercise, so we add exercise, but we keep it, minimalistic. You don't have to go over 1 hour, for example. You use the effective stuff, and well, that's the stuff I promote, preach, or whatever you want to call it. Calisthenics, body and ancestral. So everything here will be ancestral. So the first foundation here will be very ancestral, and then we get to modern human here. So it's basically, it's pretty beautiful like that. It's pretty, like ancestral here. Ancestral here. And then, you start moving towards, I always call it prefrontal cortex, the modern man. So we'll call it and you're using your prefrontal cortex for this. So or we can call it modern man. When I say man, I mean human. Modern man, I mean human. Don't, language should be beautiful. Don't get caught up on, nonsense, all right? We're become, very, very fragile mentally, and that is terrible. All right, you gotta be strong, resilient in everything, in both body and mind, all right? That is, these two are the most important. The body here, so scaling back with body and mind, these two are the most important. Then we got, environment, which can be, you change your, your rooms and, associations. Associations like, for example, we can call it room associations, actually. We got removal of phones and electronics. Distractions. They're all distractions, So environmental distractions. So we got, mind here, we got body here. So you see, diet is its own thing, exercise its own thing, meditation and relaxation its own thing. And then within diet, we got fasting. I'm talking about something new here, OFAD. Instead of OMAD, OFAD, all right? Let's talk about OFAD. OFAD is 1 feast a day. 1 feast a day. You feast in the evening or at night, all right? You feast in the evening or at night like our ancestors. You got fasting, you got OFAD, you got nutrition density, there is a lot of stuff here. I could, go on and on and on here. Dry fasting, within fasting you got, dry fasting and dry water. We can go on and on and on and on, and within this, salts and, everything, minerals and everything you need to know about that stuff. And then, so we got, and that's still body, so exercise. But then obviously body and mind, they're connected always, We can't separate the brain from the body. So you need both, obviously. And your gut bacteria as well, and your heart, all right? So let's put that here. Let's put that here, The brain, the heart, and the gut, and the core, The heart, and then the brain is pretty big, actually. So, you see, it's like 3. So, and that's body. This whole thing, body, and this thing here, mind. And everything is soul, in my opinion. Like everything you feel, everything, all the emotions within you, I call that soul. The echoes of you, that's the soul. It's not anything immaterial. I don't talk about immaterial stuff. I don't talk about anything like that. The spirit is the drive, the instincts, the the fire within you. All right, so passion and obsession, that is the fire, that's the spirit. When they say that's the spirit, that is it. And yeah, so, or you can see it as spirit, breath, whatever you want to. It's all of those things, they're all correct, except the beyond stuff is not correct. All right. Because we only work with reality, all right? We only care about reality, nothing else. Dry fasting, all right? Which is healing. So, like I spoke yesterday, we got all these, depths and heights, and, recovery is here as well. Recovery is here, activity, energization is here. Everything, first foundation is a lot of stuff, all right? And then we also got something interesting. Let's talk about something else, not just, exercise, diet, meditation, you relax, recover. Then we got environment. So you got a lot of distractions. This is the most important thing today. I'm not saying that the problem is not the technology. It was never, they used to, say that a radio will destroy people, and this will destroy, TV will, and so forth. Well, it has destroyed in some sense, but the thing is, it's not the book's problem, it's not the TV's problem, it's you, it's the person, all right? It's the people, the masses, they use it in an unhealthy manner, all right? You gotta use, you gotta remove stuff. You gotta remove all this stuff. If you're going to use all these electronics, use it as a creator. That is the whole point here. You use it as a creator. You use it for work, all right? So if you're gonna use your phone, Instagram, you better be a photographer or something, have a business or something, and you use Instagram. Otherwise, it is wasting your life away. You're wasting your life away instead of building all of this stuff. Instead of living life, experiencing life, you experience the simulation. You're basically matrixing yourself. You're all matrixing yourself. You're all matrixing yourself. Instead of, you don't even allow the matrix to matrix you, you matrix yourself. And I'm not saying anything is bad here. The problem is that you can't control anything because you haven't parented yourself, you haven't, worked on yourself, so you have no idea. And I don't care who we're talking about here. A lot of ambitious people also can't do this. I see all this undisciplined, unmotivated. No one has, this ancient old spirit, genius spirit, same spirit, of just creating, just putting their soul into their work. I don't see it even with Elon Musk or, I don't see it with those people or Mark Zuckerberg. They're still not that spirit. Even though they're highly intelligent, but they still don't understand anything. They still don't understand a single thing. Because, well, they don't understand this, but even if they understand what I'm saying perhaps, but they haven't taken it to heart, heart, core, all right? Core, heart. They haven't taken it to heart. All those sayings are correct, You gotta take it to heart and you gotta apply, you gotta do stuff, you gotta do them. All right? So we're ancestral. We are simulating, you know, the ancestral here. Well, I mean, I'm saying simulating, but you know, is there a better word for it? I don't know. You know, because we can't go back in time. My philosophy is not about going back in time. It is about, you know, the body is still stuck as a Cro-Magnon. You know, the body, there is virtually no difference between the Cro-Magnon and modern day humans. There is virtually no difference, all right, physically, biologically, physiologically, even perhaps psychologically. You know, you can take a Cro-Magnon kid and raise him in the modern world, and he will be like any kid in the modern world. So it doesn't, you know, it doesn't matter. Perhaps only IQ or something like that would change, but I doubt that. I doubt even IQ will change, but that's the only thing I can think of. But, you know, electronics, you gotta get rid of everything. But it's not just electronics. You know, for example, you should associate your room with, you know, work, or your room with sleep, or whatever it is, you know, whatever room it is. And you should be organized because you're self-parenting yourself. You should be organized. Well, actually, we should be organisms and not organized. I will explain soon here because it's in habit here. Let's write it down before I forget it. Organism, not, or, you know, not rigid. Now, a lot of people won't agree with me here, or, you know, let's remove not there. Organized, you know, this is what we want because love, passion, you know, actually joy in the process, you know. I wrote passion here, but joy in the process. Because we gotta have joy in the process when we're doing our habits, our life patterns have to be joyful. Well, we're getting there. Now, first here, you have to remove, you know, artificial lights, and, you know, there is a lot of stuff to do. So that is the first foundation. You work on yourself, focus only on yourself. All of that stuff is within the first foundation. All right. Second foundation is habit creation. You're creating your habits. You're creating, this is basically the life design here. You're designing your own life here. We've already, you know, got rid of our old self. We're creating a new self here. We're developing ourselves here. And then these two, of course, are working together. Like everything else in my philosophy, everything is connected. All of these are connected. Always, they will always be connected. The same way your mind and body is connected, your brain and, you know, your you know, nervous system, it's the same thing. All right. So with these thoughts are the same thing. So yeah, you're creating your habits, you're designing your life. All right. This is, you know, habit creation. You're creating your habits, the habits you want. So you're trying out, you know, the diet here will be, you know, you're trying it, you know, eating in the morning, for example, doing OFAD or OMAD, 1 meal a day in the morning, 1 feast a day in the morning. You feast in the morning. Well, then eventually you will realize that this doesn't work because my work doesn't work with my work. So I have to change it like later, or, you know, in the evening, or, you know, or perhaps I need to do a warrior diet or something like that. The warrior diet is something else. It is pretty cool. It's pretty good actually. It's nothing wrong with that, except that you have to implement some more dry fasting, water fasts to heal your body, because you're spiking insulin way more than, you know, than you should. All right, so habits is these are the most important things. The second foundation is super important. You can't just have the first foundation, you gotta have all the foundations, but the second foundation, it builds on. But not only that, it is basically, it's reshaping you in many ways. You're experimenting, that's why, self-experimentation is always included in all of these, always. And so, the second foundation is super important. The second foundation is, your life patterns, your patterns in life. So you're experimenting, you're seeing what works, what doesn't work, because as soon as you implement new stuff, let's say, your exercise, well, obviously you start exercise and diet, quite early on together, but then you start to meditate as well. And, all of these three, diet, exercise, and meditation, and then you have a lot of stuff to deal with. So you don't understand yet, does meditation work for me in the morning or in the evening, or at lunch or something? Not only do I not know when to eat or exercise yet, when to, instead of, it's not just you understand what you want to do perhaps, but you don't yet understand what your best routine is. So that is habit creation, your discovery of your best routine. The discovery of your best routine, but it is super important to love it, to have joy in the process. Not only having joy, in eating the way you do, like an OFAD or fasting, and the food you're eating, nutrition density, dense foods, like liver and organ meats. Not just that, of course, but fish, everything, meat, eggs, not just protein. Perhaps you need some fruits and stuff like that, but and not just the best routine in these, but in conjunction with exercise and meditation and environment, that is just removal, that is just procrastination removal, that is pure scaling back, while these you can't fully scale. You can't just this is the most scaling back when it comes to diet, which is fasting, not eating at all. But you can't, just fast. So you always have to put something in. So the first foundation, the core, it cannot ever, like I said, everything corrodes. You cannot remove inflammation fully. It is impossible. The same way physics, particles, they have to, get eliminated at some point. There is no such thing as infinite energy. The same way here, we're the same as in physics. We are the exact same thing, all right? It's just biological and a bit more complex because we got all these different molecules here and hormones and everything working, ancestral hormones. All of that stuff is working here, and with exercise as well, all these different hormones and cortisol and stress and not stress, and you don't stress, and producing dopamine and producing serotonin and oxytocin and everything else, and perhaps even DMT when you sleep, it is DMT when you sleep. So, or very similar. So you discover the joy here within all of these things, and then you discover, that's the joy in the process principle, or the love principle, or whatever we want to call it. Well, it's not whatever we want to call it. It has to be the joy principle or the love principle. And, the passion, the obsession. And the same with the habit creation, You got to find the way you love training. You love training in the morning, you hated it at night, you don't do it at night. If it doesn't work, If it doesn't work, you change, all right? Always. If it doesn't work, if something doesn't work, something is wrong, you don't have a joy in the process, and you change, all right? Something is wrong. When you don't enjoy it, the principle, something is wrong, and you change it. You don't remove diet, you don't start eating garbage, you just eat at a different time, all right? And that is here. That is time. This is more about time, you know. Time. This is time and this is space. This is space and this is time. So when it comes to, you know, your life, space-time are connected, but they're not the same thing like in physics. But of course, we are within physics, so we are within space-time, so of course they're connected. But in reality is space-time. But so creation, all right, habit creation. But the thing is, you see, when you have your whole day figured out, the way I have, you don't need to plan out everything all the time, every day, because you'll be an organism. You'll be a natural organism, you know, ancestral, natural organism. You will be like an animal, again. You'll be like, you know, we are animals, so of course, again. Not organized like a computer. We're not computers, we're not machines, we're not mechanisms. We are biological organisms, all right? We're not mechanisms. They usually talk about us in these physical terms as mechanisms, biological mechanisms. Well, it is not a mechanism, all right? Especially psychology is not a mechanism. And since we are psychology, we're not a mechanism. We are psychology. Or, well, psychological. You know? We're sentient creatures. We're sentient mind and body. And we're all of this. We're mind and body, heart, everything else in the body, obviously, muscles and everything else as well. And that's why we're organisms. That's why we gotta have joy in the process, because everything else will falter if you don't have this. If you think you can have a rigid system, some people are, you know, more like that, but even they will create too much cortisol. Even they will do this. They will create too much cortisol. Life won't be enjoyable. You know, not even Bill Gates, you can look at him, you see that he has a, you know, schedule and stuff, but you can still see that the man relaxes, all right? He is within his organism. You can see that Steve Jobs, of course you can see that he always seemed tense, you know, there was always some tension with him. But you can also see that he loves the process and joy in it. And if I remember correctly, Steve Jobs didn't wake up, you know, he sometimes went to work at 8 or 9. You see, or 9. It's not like super, you know. And the thing is, you can be super organized if you want to. That is fine, but you gotta love that. You gotta love that, all right? You gotta love doing that. Otherwise, it won't work. Nothing will work, all right? You can have it scheduled. I have everything scheduled, but I also have it, you know, I'm still open to improvement all the time. And that is why it cannot be rigid yet. Well, yet. It is like I'm always delaying the rigidity. The rigidity, I always delay it, you know, because it can't be 100% rigid, because I constantly improve and reshape my habit creation. Actually, my first foundation is pretty figured out. And my second foundation is also, well, you know, the third and fourth, I went backwards in life. So I'm basically like everyone else. I went backwards in life. Well, not like everyone else, but intellectual people, philosophers, people like that. I developed ways to create ideas all the time, and I'm great at knowing how to read stuff and filter nonsense. And I, a lot of knowledge and stuff like that. But an interest, curiosity in a lot of stuff. So that is within, fourth foundation, information absorption. But the thing is, I'm constantly creating my habits, It's still not, perfect there. And it won't be ever, because I realized when I was working with this, I realized that this can't be perfect ever, because habits, patterns, you can see it like drops in water and, like waves. And, waves are not perfect. They're always changing, all right? So the principle of change is very strong with the second foundation. You can eat the same thing every day, perhaps, and exercise the same way every day, meditate the same way, but it is very hard to you can do a rigid system with this as well, but you will start hating your life. Depends on who you are, but most people, I think, would start hating their life here, and that's why loving the process and enjoying the process is much more important. That's why I speak of being an organism instead of being organized. Because most people, well, technically I'm not talking to most people. I'm talking to, the genius. But even the genius, Leonardo da Vinci or something, it's not like he had this, I gotta wake up at this time, they didn't have, watches and, alarm clocks. They didn't have alarm clocks like we do, And an alarm clock will sacrifice your health, because you will always have this subconscious, you gotta wake up. And this creates stress, and stress increases cortisol. And increasing cortisol, increasing inflammation, increasing unhealth, you're increasingly being unhealthy. All right? So you're sacrificing your health there, and that is the number one we cannot sacrifice. Number one thing we cannot sacrifice, the core, health. All right? This is the most important thing. This is you. Okay? So you never sacrifice this. Never, 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 ever sacrifice this. You never, ever sacrifice yourself. Except, of course, you sacrifice your old self, creating your new self, but you don't sacrifice your health, because you sacrifice the unhealthy old self and creating the new healthy self. So you don't sacrifice your core. It's just an identity thing in your brain, in your head, in your mind. All right? So you see, you got to discover the best routine for you, like when you exercise the best, when you eat, when you meditate the best, morning, evening, you try things out, you self-experiment. You try things out, you self-experiment, you try, morning, evening, you try things out and see what works for you. If there is joy there, then it's correct. If it's not joyful, then it's incorrect. You got to change something. And as soon as you introduce, your business and work and stuff like that, this will drastically change yet again. So it is, in a sense, this, destruction of worldviews. You constantly destroy yourself, your old self, and create a new self all the time. All right? You constantly do this. You constantly do this. Super important. All right? So that's basically habit creation. Now, obviously, there are ways to go. Should I how do I increasingly move towards my higher desire? But I won't get into that because, it will overwhelm you, I think. So let's look at third foundation, idea generation. All right? This is about ideas, generating ideas. All right? And this foundation I've built over many, many years. I'm basically a super expert in always creating ideas. I have so many ideas I could give you, all of you, even if you were like, even if, millions of people, I don't care. I could give most people a lot of ideas, and I still have a lot of my own ideas that I have to, I'm just focusing on one purpose right now. So, and I will always perhaps, always focus on, it's the same purpose, it's just different ways of expression. I love my art as well, for example. So my art will also help people. So it's the same thing, the purpose is the same thing. It's just in a different manner. So within expression. I am an artist, philosopher. I'm not just one thing. I'm many things. And you should be many things. You should have curiosity, Here it is, curiosity. Curious. You should have curiosity. Curiosity is stronger than dogma. Curiosity is stronger than everything, because otherwise Newton wouldn't, move forward. Without curiosity, you don't have mechanics, classical mechanics as we call it now. You wouldn't have Galileo, you wouldn't have Kepler, you wouldn't have Copernicus, you wouldn't have all of these geniuses of the past, these greats, and other people like Leonardo da Vinci as well. They all were curious, perhaps they all believed in God, but they were super curious about nature and truth. They wanted to get down to the truth of the matter, the reality. They wanted to understand reality and understand themselves, What am I? Who am I? It's basically the same thing. The meaning of life. They ask themselves the meaning of life yet again. I'm doing the same thing except in philosophy and continuing it in a different manner with health. That as far as I can, think of, I don't think any philosopher has gone this much within health. There are philosophers going, to the individual and then outwards, like Kant or, there are people like that. Or individualistic, like Nietzsche is very individualistic. And you have, others. And in political philosophy as well. But curiosity, prevails. Curiosity is the courageous drive within us, Curiosity is the courageous spirit, all right? Curiosity is, I love curiosity, all right? I'm curious about everything. I was this as a kid, I loved rivers, mountains. I wanted to know what animal had the biggest heart. The blue whale. The blue whale has the biggest everything, but, well, basically. It's not the biggest organism, but it's the biggest, animal. Now, you're interested in a lot of stuff, in politics perhaps as well. I've been interested in politics. It's just, I understand that today it's a waste of time because you never focus on your health and yourself instead of, doing that. I understand if you are a career politician, but you can still implement all of this stuff and your politics will be even better. Especially if you apply some philosophical, principles as well. You want to seek the truth and not just be rhetorical and, Now, idea generation. This takes some years to develop properly, but the first thing you have to do when it comes to the third foundation, idea generation, you have to start writing down everything. I used to call this at first, write down everything. Write down all your ideas. I don't care how immature or how bad the idea is, even in retrospect, you keep it there. And this will accumulate next day, next week, next month. You continue like this next year, and then 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And like me, like 14 years, like a lot of years. I don't even remember when I started. I don't know if it's 14 years, but it's been a very long time. I philosophized, at very least, philosophized deeply for 14, 15 years. So this didn't just happen, you know. But this is quite recent, actually. This is quite recent because I hadn't, you know, I still hadn't, you know, developed my own, truly own, I hadn't distanced myself enough and experienced enough to distance myself from my heroes, my, you know, philosophers and so forth. But you also gotta understand to read correctly. Now that is information absorption. So you gotta understand what to read, how to think critically. This is super important, even if you're not a philosopher, all right? This is super important for everything because when you research how to fast and diet and everything, you gotta be critical here because there is so much nonsense out there. There's a lot of nonsense and you can't even trust all the research because they don't even control for the right things yet. They're very behind when it comes to fasting. When it comes to fasting, the research is very, very behind. And they're also in nutrition density and stuff like that as well. So, but there is more about nutrition and stuff, but still, and it is very hard. I'm not, you know, nutrition and all that, you know, it's about molecules and it's quite complex. So that's why it takes so many years and they still haven't got it. But we can self-experiment and we can see what our body, when, you know, we develop our instincts and then our bodies will understand what works for us and what doesn't work for us. All right. And that is why it's super important. This is super important. But idea generation, start writing down everything. This will accumulate through time. And this is super important when you start, you know, business. So, you know, third foundation, idea generation, information absorption, fourth and third foundation, they're very, you know, connected, of course, the same way first and second are connected. But obviously this is connected with these as well. You know, this is more body and this is mind, basically. You see, everything is body and mind. I'm a little bit inspired there by, you know, Descartes, the body and mind dualism. Well, technically, you know, in reality, there is no dualism. All of this is the same in reality. But this is everything you need. You only need 4 foundations, nothing else. You know, these ideas here that you generate, this will be, you know, for your business, for your work, passion, whatever it is, art, your ideas on art, your ideas on, you know, everything, that is here. All right, that is here. And that is, you know, I can do that backwards in my sleep. All right, so like I said, I went backwards in life the same way everyone else goes backwards. They don't care about their health. Almost no one cares about their health. Even if they say, usually they say in the Balkans, well, my origins, you know, my grandpa, grandma, and so forth, they always speak of, you know, it doesn't matter, the health is the most important. Yeah, but, and still they don't listen to me about, you know, inflammation and stuff. So, you know, no one takes it to heart, truly to heart, all right? You gotta truly take my words to heart, all right? Otherwise, nothing will work here. Nothing will work here. Okay? No rigidity. We're not rigid systems. We're not systems. That's why my philosophy is not a system, because we're not systems. As you can see, there is an organization. You see, there is some organization. So it's basically like life and biology. There is some, you know, in DNA and stuff, there is some computational stuff there. And it's not totally random. Genes are not totally random. And yet they're not directional either. You see, I'm the same. The truth is always in between, subtle, fleeting, great. It's beautiful. All right, so electronics. So yeah, so that is basically it, you know. You got these 4 foundations, information absorption, you gotta know where to read. And oh, by the way, when it comes to your 4th foundation there, By the way, you can also include that, you know, in your routines as well. So for example, you have, before you go to sleep, perhaps you don't want to meditate when you go to sleep, perhaps you want to read a book or something before you sleep. And that is all fine. Or after your meal, you read like 1 hour or something, which is beautiful, that is great. If you have time, implement that, you know, you can implement however you want to, 1-2 hours, you know. But fourth foundation, it's important that you read the source, all right? Of course, I understand that you can't read, for example, Nietzsche in German, but you read the best you can find, Walter Kaufmann. You find the best in everything. Let's say you want to start a business, you find the best books about business, and you Google whatever you have to do. Google, you research more than just Google, because you can also find, you know, the greats are not always the most popular. The greats are not always the most popular. Remember that. The greats in movies, the great directors, are not the most popular directors. The greats in poetry are not the best, you know. Although in poetry they're more, you know, revered, but because literature, for some reason, literature is more, you know, serious for people and not movies, but I take movies very seriously as well. I take movies very seriously. We can discuss about movies. I've seen a lot of movies. We can discuss movies. We can discuss art and stuff like that in a different lecture. I want to do that. I want to do that because I got it in my dream. I'm actually going to listen to my dreams as well, because there is some instinct there as well. So, but this is my awareness instinct, and then in the dreams, it's more the passive instinct. You see, passive, active. The same in meditation, active, passive, because it gets, with exercise, you can have awareness, and you know, you can have passive, active awareness here, active, and then with meditation just on its own, passive. You know, or you know, together with sleep, perhaps. When you combine sleep and meditation, you get passive meditation. Stuff like that, you know, or we could call meditation awareness, perhaps, you know, because there is passive. You use this, your awareness, your mind, you use that, it's a tool. I see our prefrontal cortex as a tool. Our mind is our tool. I see our brain as tool, the best tool there is in nature. Without it, we wouldn't create civilization. So the brain is the best when it comes to, you know, tools. So, and the brain invented all this stuff. So whatever you see here, it's invented by the brain. But obviously, you know, my gut bacteria affects that. So you see, it's all connected here. The core, gut, heart, you know. Fourth foundation, information absorption. Yeah, don't read just articles. Read, like I said, you go to the source. You read Nietzsche. If you're interested in Nietzsche, so you gotta have joy in the process, in everything. You gotta enjoy the way you take, you know, notes, your concepts, your ideas. You gotta love your ideas as well, and the way you take notes. Perhaps you take a walk for 1 hour. You take notes. That way, you record yourself or write it down. You know, whatever works for you. And then you have to have joy in the process in the fourth foundation as well. You read the stuff you love, all right? Not what your teacher says, all right? I'm your teacher, and I'm telling you that you should read those who expand your mind. Those who expand your mind, broaden your horizons. The contrarians are the best, because you have to get the mainstream, and then you counter the mainstream with all the people who countered mainstream. You read all the best, you know, you read Nietzsche, but you also read Aristotle, Plato, you read all of them, Heraclitus, Epicurus, Democritus, the pre-Socratics as well. Then, you know, Socrates, well, you read Plato, Aristotle, Socrates didn't write anything. You read some Thomas Aquinas, you read some, Anselm, you read more than just, I don't care if you're an atheist or, you gotta be curious, all right? It doesn't matter. A true philosopher, a true thinker, a true creative person, I don't care if you're a businessman or a philosopher or an artist or, a genius. I'm talking to the genius same spirits. It doesn't matter what your profession is, all right? You can clean toilets. You can still be a genius same spirit. So, listen. So you read the best, all right? You read Nietzsche. You read Albert Camus. If you want to know about existentialism, you don't just read Sartre. You read Camus. You love Camus? Well, you can love both if you want to. I love Camus more than Sartre. But, you read Heidegger. You don't read about Heidegger. You don't read a generalized book about Heidegger or about Nietzsche. You read Nietzsche. You can read the other stuff as well, but then you read Nietzsche as well, because you got to build your own idea here. Otherwise, how are you supposed to create your own ideas here, idea generation? So you see, these are very connected here. The third and fourth are very, very connected here. Perhaps the fourth should even be the third, because you got to have some information in that is great. The same way food has to be great stuff in, or if with a book, great stuff in, but also with that, it's plus here. You see, diet and, book, information, info, you see, and they work, together, and it will be, greatness. If it's greatness, then, if only the diet is great, but you read nonsense, garbage, you'll still produce garbage. But they have to be both have to be great, or at the very least, diet has to be very good, and the book has to be great. You have to read great books, and you discard the rest. You're not supposed to read. There is no point in reading I read 500 books this year. I read 1,000 books this year. I don't care. It's not about how many you read. It's about how you read, how you absorb it, how your soul absorbs it, how how deep it goes within you. A true philosopher, like I said, I didn't finish that thought. A true philosopher, a true thinker, a true creative person, they can get into another person's shoes, all right? Another philosopher's shoes or thinker or whatever it is. You can get inside this, and you can, without becoming it, all right? That is the work of a genius. That is perhaps the best definition I have of a genius, all right? That is the best definition I have of a genius. You can get into that, you can intellectualize anything. There are no single ideas you cannot intellectualize, all right? Nothing. And you don't care about what other thinks of you doing this, all right? They can judge you. You don't care. That is how great you are. That is a genius, same spirit. All right? Those are the people I want in my life. Those are the people I want in my life. But I want to make you even better than you are. You are perhaps at the third and fourth foundation, actually. Perhaps you are here. Most likely, you are here. And you haven't, or perhaps a little bit here as well, but you've never, develop your first foundation. You went backwards in life. You went from modern, well, we are born in it's not your fault, because the mainstream, the establishment, everything just puts everything into you as a baby, all right? And then you don't realize this until you get like me, until you get into the depths, and then you take yourself out of the depths up in the heights, all right? Depths and heights, like a full human condition experience, all right? Which is great. You have to do that, all right? Perhaps you have to do that. Just do that now. Get it over with. No, that's not how it works, but I understand that it just, it happens. The existential angst, all that stuff, it happens. I'm starting to call it the grayness I always had this grayness in me. I never understood what it was until now, I think, actually, until yesterday. Because I realized that depression, anxiety, mood swings, all of those things, jealousy, you know, all those things, negative thoughts, obtrusive thoughts, whatever it is, all of those things is the grayness, and we counter it with the yellowness, which is my philosophy. All right, life is more green, but this philosophy, the core, is yellow. That's how I see it. That's how I literally see it. All right, it's like synesthesia, I think. I don't know, but I haven't checked anything, but that's how I see it. And for example, 4, I see that as green. I can do this all day, but foundation is not green, even if it's F here. It depends on all the, you know, it's more white actually. So it depends on all the you know, letters. Well, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. What matters is you go backwards. You go from prefrontal, modern man, to ancestral. Like I did, you have to do this. You have to go backwards. I realize that most of you are like this, so I might as well, you know, speak like this. But I will, you know, talk a lot about ancestral, because you gotta fix this. You gotta fix this, because this will make your potential insane. All right, your potential will become incredible. I want to perfect the human condition. I want to make perfect humans, not perfect, but perfected humans. All right, I want to make you a genius. All right, and a genius with a full potential, not just, I know you're a genius already. You're great here. You perhaps even have like 1 billion ideas, but you don't have, you know, direction. You don't have a purpose. That's why you have 1 billion ideas, but you don't have a purpose. You don't have a use for them in some sense. There is no use for it because it's chaos, it's chaotic, it's everywhere. Instead of not everywhere, instead here, instead, you know, this direction, you know? All right? So I believe that is it. 4th foundation. And so there are 4 foundations in life. This is all you need. The body. This is body. This is body. All right, and this is mind. This is mind. All right, this is mind here. Prefrontal cortex, you see? It all becomes beautiful. You see, it all becomes beautiful. Prefrontal cortex, mind, body. Our body is the same as our ancestors. No difference. We know this from science. I'm not just making it up. We know this from science. We know it, all right? We know it. And we understand that our body has to be treated the same way. So we have to eat ancestrally. You have to just eat ancestrally, treat your body the same way your ancestor treated their body, and you will be healthier. And you will be more potential, because this body will help the mind, because they are connected, you know? Always. It's always like that. I'll most likely realize that I forget something and I put it in the video with subtitles and stuff. And sometimes even longer, because, you know, I get spiritual when I edit as well, when I create things. I get spiritual all the time, every time. My life is spirit. My life is spirit. You know, it's that's how I like it, and that's how it's always going to be. It's going to be even more. You know, I always want to increase this. It has to be increased, and I used to have a lot of patience before, but I'm getting increasingly less patient actually. Perhaps, and I'm getting increasingly frustrated with people who are slow. The same way my mother is. I'm getting closer to my mother or something. well, we were always close, but in some sense, becoming, not becoming her, because you're always separate from them, but it's still your origin, you know? Your mother, your origin, your father also, both. You have to love both. Well, I know that some people don't, but if you don't, you have to love yourself. You have to love yourself. You have to love something, all right? You can't go in life without love. Love is, after all, very important. All right? So, I don't know what we're talking about tomorrow. Perhaps art. Perhaps the importance of art. Perhaps something else. And we can go into, you know, first foundation. We can go into more detail about second and so forth. And, you know, that is it. So, if you're highly ambitious, you can contact me. You can message me on Facebook. You can email me as well. We will talk there. And if you have any problems, you can comment down below. If you have any, you know, questions about any specific thing here, comment down below. I will answer everything. If there's something you want me to talk about in a lecture, in a video, whatever we're gonna call it, I call it lecture. I like this, you know. I'm a teacher, and you know, I like teaching. So, and teaching passionately, not just anything. You gotta teach passionately. You gotta do your work passionately. The same way with everything. I eat passionately. I train passionately. Now, obviously, some days won't be as passionate, but you know, you fluctuate. Not everything will be, you know, these. Sometimes it should be, you know, like I spoke of yesterday, it should be counterbalance, but sometimes it will be smaller counterbalance, you know? It will be more like this. So, you know, it is still like this, but, you know, we want life to be like this, but it can't always be this, it has to be this as well. Because in some sense, this in its whole is the lower, you know, it is the depths there, and this is the heights of the heights there. You see, it all works out like that. So, if you have any questions, comment down below. If you didn't understand what I just said, watch my previous lecture and watch everything. Because when you watch everything I do here, you will understand more and more what I'm speaking of. I think one lecture should, you know, get everything, but especially this one, perhaps. And then perhaps I'll make a, you know, my story thing tomorrow. We'll see, or art, or the importance of art. All right, so that is it. All my links are down below. Quora, Facebook page, Facebook group. You can join the group if you want to. If you're one of those, you know, sim spirits, if you like my stuff, if you like my stuff, you most likely are one of those sim spirits. All right, so keep on developing your character, keep on working on yourself, keep on focusing on yourself. Everything will be great. Everything is always and always will be great and fine. I will see you people, the genius same spirits. I will see you tomorrow.